where people are at with their income, and these are very unprecedented times.
Yeah, this is what we're going on 21 days in Sonoma County, where we've been on
Yes.
the shelter. And, as all of our businesses, small businesses and, individuals, entrepreneurs, contractors, we're all, I think, trying to pivot and figure out how to be productive and how to bridge gaps that are coming up, because this 21 days without revenue coming in it's a long time. I mean, that's a long time to hold your breath as a business. And we're starting to see more businesses really having to figure out if they can withstand or sustain, and for how long. And I think that's a huge challenge. One thing I know we can do is, buy local as much as you can. And I was listening to the radio this morning, they were talking about that. And I think that's something that we can emphasize here is, whether it's going out to eat or, waiting to make bigger purchases rather than just ordering them online, and buy something from a, local vendor here and help support them. Even, waiting till this is, if you can't purchase it now, waiting till till this is lifted, then going out and making those purchases and helping them out as much as possible. I know we love convenience. I'm there too. Ordering things online is very nice when it just shows up to your house, but there's a lot more I think we can do to pivot and help them as well. Local companies. And then, I think unfortunately, we're going to see a lot of this unfolding over this next week here, 2 weeks too, as this pandemic starts to spike. And I'm hoping though, some of the silver lining with that is that we have kind of an end in sight, at least more clarity about what we can expect in coming into the next month too. But it'll be interesting to see how it all unfolds.
Yeah, and looking for Sonoma County, just through the macro of Sonoma County with coronavirus, or with COVID-19, is that there's been a total of 115 cases, 84 active, 30 recovered, 1 death, and over 2,500 tests. So, I think our community has done we can't celebrate yet. We need to be mindful, but our community has done an amazing job of starting off this pandemic as much as possible, and yet of course things can still peak. And again, that's why I'm saying not to be too celebratory. But if you look at it, I mean, it's amazing how that is working. And I'm hoping that in the next few weeks we can start doing a little more social easing. That there are some businesses that, as long as social distancing is respected, that they can open, that they're able to get back engaged. That would be ideal. And especially with how well Sonoma County has done overall. I mean, when you've had that many tests and that's so few cases, that's something for us that's the silver lining, really.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. One of the things I heard that was really good is that, I think there's a real disparity in terms of people are just affected differently by this too. From an economic standpoint, you're going to see certain industries or certain jobs that are going to still either have, good income during this time, right, or even thriving. So I think that those people that really have jobs, have income, and haven't been hit by this, economically directly yet. One of the things that I heard that I thought was a really good idea is just, don't cut down on, if you were getting your hair done, for example, by a hairdresser, pay that person, prepay, for,
right,
for those services in advance, or, landscaping or things that you normally would pay for. Don't cut those off just because, you're not getting those services. Really support your local, community, because you have a job and you haven't been affected. And there's a lot of people I know that, we're busy. So we shouldn't, basically cut out all the things and really stop our, our consumption just because consumption still is just good old barter, right? We're still human beings connecting and trading with each other. So really thinking from that mindset where, hey, how I, basically buying something from my local community is really going to impact, me directly as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's going to be, I think a lot of businesses too, small businesses are pivoting more to go online, try to figure out ways to still bring their services and products to people. But it's not an easy thing to try to do in the midst of all this too. In real estate, obviously, we were now under the essential businesses category. So, it's not business as normal. We've got a set guideline. In fact, I've been reviewing it with clients consistently, buyers and sellers. And, there's ultimately it helps create, guidelines for how to conduct business, but it depends on the comfort level of both the buyer and seller too. So I think, as Matt was saying, as we move forward, you get to do so with open conversation about it, making sure people are comfortable and have that open communication. A lot of what these new forms are outlining is really just kind of reiterating what the risks are, right, of person-to-person interaction, of contracting COVID-19, and how to go about protecting yourself, the clients, buyers, sellers, how protocol for showing a property. It has to be a home that is vacant. The form, it's called Coronavirus Property Entry Advisory and Declaration, must be signed by all parties. Only 2 people from the same household can go to the vacant property. And afterwards, after the showing, the lockbox, the door, the house needs to be wiped down, right? And so despite having some guidelines, we still need to be very careful about showing properties, and also just making sure that everybody's comfortable and understands really what the implications are. And two, I think it's also good that it helps open the dialogue for all of us to understand, like, hey, let's try to do as much as we can from from our homes, from our desktops, working on computers, working online, doing the virtual tours, and understanding what it is that the homes that are being marketed. So yeah, it's I can imagine too, as to again piggyback on what Matt's saying, is businesses are opening, that they have guidelines similar to this, and that are saying, hey, you may go to a coffee shop, but make sure you have markers that are 6 feet apart, and everybody wipes their hands, or I don't know, I'm just throwing things out there, but I imagine they'll be progressing into this into opening businesses with a very methodical way to make sure to keep everybody safe. And it'd be interesting, Joe, you mentioned school. Like, I'm very curious, like, how are we going to get into what's school going to look like for next I guess for fall, right? I mean, that's it'll be interesting how the summer plays out, but yeah, I guess we'll see.
Yeah, no, I definitely is we are in the thick of it. And I like that we continue to obviously stay in touch. I think this is good. And one of the things that I think we can probably just end on is just something that I had thought about, because I see a lot of stuff going around about the forbearance and mortgage,
right,
not making the payments. And it's funny because everybody kind of is going out and talking about it. And I think at the end of the day, I just really, really, really want to reiterate, as somebody who's struggling with making their mortgage payments, they really, really need to contact their mortgage servicer and do a lot of their own homework. This bill that's, basically being passed, the CARES Act, and all the details, there's the devil's in the details. And I'm not saying that this is bad. I'm just saying, here's what is being said, is that, it's going to be interesting because basically the law apparently is such that there are no need to prove financial hardship to get a forbearance. And so, and I'm not quite sure how, because, you know, I've gone in and actually gone on to some of the servicers websites, and they say that, you know, you need to provide financial documents, and the law apparently is saying otherwise. So, you know, and I haven't looked at the actual, you know, what the actual bill says specifically, so I can't really speak on that. But my recommendation is that, look, the one thing I am being told is if you are applying for a forbearance, then certain servicers are not going to buy that loan if they are not going to buy a loan where a borrower has had a forbearance. In other words, if you have a loan right now and you apply for forbearance, right, and you get your, you know, payment basically temporarily suspended for say 6 months, and then in a year from now rates are 3% and you want to refi, and you did a forbearance. Certain loan companies they're going to not take that. Now, I don't know if that is fact, but that's what I'm hearing. That's a rumor. So in other words, you really want to start to think about, and if you don't have to prove financial hardship to begin with, you just say, hey, I'm affected by, you know, COVID-19, and now I need temporary payment assistance. You do that for 6 months, and, you know, in a year you want to refi, they may decline your loan on that basis. And
well, so I think what it is too is that there's a difference between a suspension and a forbearance. Mm-hmm. And I've had a couple people reach out to me, and I told them emphatically, please follow up with your servicer, because I've already heard stories of they're expecting it on the back end. Like you stop for 3 months, then a month 4, you're going to have to pay for all those 3 months, and you're going to pay for that. And just like you're saying, Joe, if that, it's almost like a scar, like getting, if you file for like Chapter 11 or something like Chapter 13. So it's something that I think people need to be very mindful of. And like you said, devil in the details. Make sure to understand 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just got to see that the way this is set up is kind of a setup for future pain. The government basically gave this blanket, you know, kind of ticket to forbearance of your payments, right? And that is the correct word, because I didn't mean suspension, to forbear your payments, right? But my point is, if it's a blanket invitation for everybody to do that, if you're affected without the need to financially prove hardship, like you did back in the 2008 crisis, that's, you know, on the reading that I've been doing, you can see how that's a setup for the future pain, and there's a lot of lack of clarity on how that's really going to impact people, right? So, and see, because what's going to happen is that may be a great ticket for somebody who's being affected, but the unintended consequences of the banks now, obviously, the institutions and the investors now pulling back, well, what that's going to mean is they're going to raise the standards for going and getting loans for everybody, all right, which is already what they started to do. They started to raise the FICO requirements and starting to change certain things from, you know, a lending perspective that make it open access to credit. So it's just going to have unintended consequences. So I think that our responsibility is to also just protect yourself, understand the details, and don't just listen to, you know, people that claim to say they know exactly how it works.
Yeah, just to reiterate and recap, like what I'm hearing is that call your lender, call your servicer, figure out what their guidelines are for handling it, because they're all going to potentially be different. Right. There's some
ask the question: if I want to refinance later, am I affected?
Yeah,
exactly. Because a lot of servicers right now are like hospitals in New York City.
Yep.
And they are just jam-packed. And I think, and even if you try to call your servicer right now, you might be on hold for an inordinate amount of time. But you need to have those facts, because I think what it comes down to is some servicers, like if it's a Wells Fargo, a Bank of America, that stimulus is affecting them differently than if you have a servicer like Mr. Cooper or Sinlar, who's not technically a big bank. So everyone gets affected differently. No matter what, the servicer is responsible for those receivables. And if the servicer is not getting paid, they're not going to just be charitable and close their doors. So what they need to make sure that they're covering that money somehow. So nothing's free, and make sure you cover CYA.
Right. And what other, the loans that are eligible have to be Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac too, correct?
Yeah,
I mean,
or Ginnie Mae, which is
or
FHA
Ginnie Mae.
or VA.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to figure out if you're even eligible, you could go to those websites, right? And
exactly
plug in your information and they'll let you know. Got it.
So no, just a good topic. I just had seen a lot of people this is claiming to be, not claiming to be an expert, but just saying things that are potentially going to mislead people about what can and can't be done. And, I definitely know that there's going to be a lot of, confusion.
Yeah, I checked in with my servicer to see what the deal was. I haven't heard anything back. I just said, hey, how are you handling this? Because I was curious.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let you know when I hear something.
Yeah.
Please do.
Yeah. That's the best thing to do is, for us to just call. I mean, it can't hurt. I had somebody who was asking me, hey, I have an investment property, and if I were to, get forbearance on that, would that affect me on a purchase that I'm trying to do now? And I'm like, my first thought is, yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. Well, ultimately,
but the thing is that you as somebody, I can't tell you what you can and can't do. And so it's a really slippery slope. You don't want to say, hey, if you're truly struggling to, make your payments, you should contact them. But at the same time, you really shouldn't be thinking about applying for a loan. It's kind of a more common sense kind of thing. So you just got to kind of think about it. The problem is that the governments didn't put provisions in place to make it specific enough. So,
right. And I think it's how is it going to be reported on your credit? Because that's going to be something that I think will immediately show up, right? If you aren't making payments, they're going to be tacked on to either the end or perhaps show a bigger balance, right?
And that's the thing. So that's where you really got to get those details, because that's, from my point of view, which is just a point of view, then yeah, absolutely. But I'll hear people saying that it's not, or none of the terms or anything are modified. So I'm like, well, how is this being done? So again, it's really a matter of going straight to the servicer and honestly doing research on the bill, and digging deep, figuring out. I mean, if it were me and I'm in this situation where I couldn't make my payments, I'd probably be digging in and figuring out exactly what that law is. And
definitely,
what are the repercussions? Because, you don't want to be affected negatively if they're telling you you're not going to have negative credit, impact. You really want to make sure of that, because it could be an issue later on.
Oh yeah, it's just like I remember coming across people back in especially 16 and so where they had loan modifications done in 08, 09, and not realizing what that modification meant later on for them.
Yeah,
it felt like nothing was explained. They thought that if anything, they were just going to have lower payments and that life was going to be good, but not understanding what that meant.
Yeah.
They did reverse mortgages in the early 2000s and not understanding what that meant. So it's very important that you pay attention to all the details.
Yeah.
So a quick question I have for you, Matt. Crispy tacos, soft tacos, or street tacos?
Street tacos, I really prefer having my corn tortillas kind of like lightly fried, but just for a short period of time. All about the pollo. It's got to be pollo and just the right salsa. A little bit of cabbage. I don't like lettuce in my tacos.
Yeah, I like cabbage too.
Cabbage. I'm a cabbage person with my tacos. And I like a little raw onion, salsa. I'm good to go. I could eat those all day long.
Cilantro.
No way.
How about you, Joe?
Okay, hold on. I'm looking right now. So, do you remember the you're gonna love this. Do you remember the ice cream trucks that would come around?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah, remember? So, and then they had the taco ice cream.
Oh, the Choco Taco.
Oh, yeah.
The Choco Taco.
Of course.
And that was more crunchy. That was more
Yes,
crunchy.
I am all about the Choco Taco, my friend.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. Keith
Man,
and
you
Jerry's had to
skipped,
leave
you
it.
skipped dinner, went right to dessert. I love
I
it.
do. That's how I roll.
Nice.
What do you got there, buddy? Timmy boy.
Oh, I like, we'll probably have crispy tacos. We usually do either shredded chicken or like ground chicken too. It just depends what we pick up at the store, but I love crispy tacos. They've got it. You can't let them sit too long. I hate when they get soggy. So it's like, get them
It's
like
crispy or
Pat
soggy.
said, yeah,
now
get nice
you
and
guys are making me want
and
tacos.
then hammer them down. They almost don't even make the plate, Like, you put a little sour cream, and
I want
cilantro.
tacos now.
Oh, yeah. You need the sour cream. You need
Yeah.
the sour cream.
Gotta have some sour cream in
yeah.
there. And I like cheese and avocados.
Oh, yeah.
What else did I put in there? Oh, Cholula or what's the other one? Tapatio. I do like, so I've changed it up occasionally. Jalapenos sometimes. Just depends what we have in the fridge.
Man, you guys are killing
Awesome.
me. It's lunchtime.
Yeah, I'm hungry now.
Lunchtime.
Right?
Well, all right, fellas. We were live on Facebook, or not Facebook, but on YouTube.
I see that. Yeah, right on.
Here we are.
Sweet.
All right. Well, I think that until the next time, I will catch up with you fine folks soon.
Sounds
Hasta
good.
luego.
Right on.
All right.
See you guys.